Welcome back to the Collectability podcast. Before we get started, I have to thank you for listening, and I have a favor to ask. Please push that subscribe button on the bottom part of the screen, and please comment below after you watch this interview. There is a lot to talk about today, so I want to jump right into it. Today, we are going to introduce an unexpected collaboration between Collectability and Dennison Watches, and we're going to speak to no other than Stephane Cheikh, who is the managing director of Dennison. And a couple words about Stephane before we get started. He is a technologist turned entrepreneur who has a non-traditional career, to say the least, in his horological journey. He stepped away from the corporate world to pursue entrepreneurship in the watch industry. This is a dream come true for many collectors, I must say. Today, Stephane is leading the revival of Dennison Watch. It's a historic British-American watch brand with roots that go all the way back to 1874. So it started as a deep personal interest in the watch world has evolved into a full-fledged horological journey for you. So welcome, Stephane.
Thank you very much, John. I'm really happy to be here in New York doing this podcast with you.
We are so thrilled to have you here in the city, and I want to dive right in. With Toby Sutton, and more on Toby later. You've been building a business from the ground up. You've reimagined a brand. You're overseeing product design and manufacturing. You're forging partnerships with various suppliers. You're crafting a modern identity that honors Dennison's legacy. So my first question is this: what part of the job do you enjoy most?
Well, there's a lot of things that I enjoy in this rebirth of the brand. I think working with Toby has been a great journey. He's really good with the whole design, looking at the product and see how we can evolve the brand as if it would not have stopped in 1967. So the teamwork with Toby, but also with Emanuel Gite, who is our designer, and we've been having a lot of fun. I mean, we've been trying to again brainstorm, the three of us together, and come up with dials that would be very interesting, and obviously also working with people like you, discovering what you've been doing and the ability to work with you on our first collaboration. This is what makes the job really interesting.
It's about the people, but at the end of the day, having these watches in front of us that connects us to the collecting community is what makes it so much fun. And I want to start by telling a story of how we first met.
All right.
I'm used to telling stories from about like back in the 19th century, but this one is way back in 2024, last year.
Yes.
We were both attending a Sotheby's auction in Geneva. You were sitting in the front row with your son.
Yes.
And I noticed you were both wearing what I thought was a golden ellipse or maybe a golden circle watch, matching father-son. I mean, it really speaks to what I love about Patek Philippe. And here you were at an auction, and you look like you were having a ton of fun with your son. And so I leaned back. Our mutual friend, Mike Nouveau, was sitting right behind me. I was like, Mike, who is that guy? I was like, what's his story? And he gave me a brief introduction, telling about who you are and how you've started this brand Dennison with Toby. And he said, I'd like to introduce you after the auction.
Yes.
So it was like 20 minutes later, Mike introduced the two of us. And I think you were wearing two watches at that time.
Yes.
Yeah, you were double wristing. You showed me
course.
both of the watches. And I remember looking at it, this is absolutely stunning. And I had a certain price point in my mind. I was like, I honestly thought it was a $5,000 or $6,000 watch. And then you told me it was $590 for that particular. My jaw dropped, and I was like, I want one for me. I want one for each of my kids. And thus, I think the initial idea was born. What do you remember from that first meeting?
Yeah, I mean, it was great to, having met you there. And to be honest, I didn't know who you were at the time. And you were, I remember you were sitting 2 rows behind me. And at the end, when Mike kind of did the introductions, he told me, this is John Reardon. He's, Collectability. He's one of the biggest Patek Philippe expert in the world. You need to meet with him. And I was like, wow, yes, let's do this. And I didn't think this would turn into a collaboration a couple of months after that. But I was really happy to have met you there.
It's it happened very quickly. Like we spoke, that initial meeting was 5 minutes.
Yes.
And then within 5 months, I mean, we were putting this all together.
Yes,
it
exactly.
was quite extraordinary.
Yes.
And here we are less than a year later launching this watch today. And it's so exciting. Wow. But let's go a little back into the past. So we do have to go into the 19th century. Can you tell us a little bit about Dennison?
Yes, so Dennison is an American, became watchmaker, but was born in Brunswick, Maine. And then very quickly, his father saw that he was quite talented with his hand. His father was a shoemaker, so Aaron Lufkin Dennison didn't want to do this like his father. So his father sent him to Boston, and he started working with a watchmaker and learned the business, learned the trade and the craftsmanship and how to be a watchmaker. And then very soon after, he created with other shareholders Waltham Watch, which at one point was the biggest watch company in the U.S. After that, he went on to Switzerland, and then in Switzerland worked with different brands. He was at the beginning, working with a family that created IWC, same for Omega. So was involved in, obviously the watch industry, heavily involved, and then decided to move all his family to Birmingham in the UK. And that was in 1874. And then he opened Dennison Watch Case in 1874 and started providing cases to Waltham in the US. So from Birmingham, UK, he was sending all the cases to Waltham. And then slowly, the big Swiss brands heard about him making incredible, high quality, durable cases. And you have stories where you have Hans Wilsdorf, Rolex in London, going to Birmingham and meeting with Aaron Lufkin Dennison and getting cases for the Rolex movements. And then after that, all the big brands started working with Dennison, Omega, IWC, Jaeger LeCoultre. And then Elgin, Waltham, all the other ones. So yeah, a lot of, there's a big heritage in this brand. And this is something also that we wanted to make sure is kept into the watch today.
I think a lot of people forget today, and you have to go in from a historian's perspective, what happened in the 19th century.
Yes.
It was a truly international business. America was much more part of the early story. Yeah. We're talking not 19th century.
Yes.
Of course, Switzerland, and of course, the UK. And it's a lot of fun to imagine that, you just mentioned it, Hans Wilsdorf, the founder of Rolex, would have known and met Mr. Dennison.
Yes.
Without a doubt, I'm quite sure that Mr. Antoine Norbert de Patek was very aware of who Dennison was, because Patek in particular was intrigued by what Waltham was doing and how mass production was becoming a very clear path to the future in the world of watchmaking. And Dennison was part of that. And cases, dials, and movements, I have to mention, because it's a big topic today, many were subjected to taxes and tariffs as they moved around the world. So it was an international business where the companies were constantly pivoting in order to bring the highest quality and best price to the client. And I think this storyline, I've had a lot of people ask, like, why would Collectability, obsessed with Patek Philippe, do something in this price point? And I was like, because it's actually the story of horology reinventing itself. And I just love that we have this like Swiss, British, American storyline being reinvented today.
Yes, exactly.
So tell me a bit about Toby. I wish he was here today for the big launch, but he's not. So can you tell us a little bit about Toby and his background?
Well, I'm sure he would have also liked to be here, but we have to divide and conquer.
Yes.
And so Toby is the owner. I mean, he bought the brand in a bit before in 2015. He's working with his father. Both of them have another business called Watches of Knightsbridge, which is an auction house, high-end auction house. They're based in London. And I guess when he was younger, he was always working with his father and looking at old watches. And when they were opening the watch in the back, back of the case, they would see Dennison. For Rolex, it would always say made for Rolex by Dennison. And that's how he came, to hear about and discover who Dennison was, then he did a lot of research to make sure that, he looked at where the brand is, and in 1967, Dennison had stopped its operation. They didn't go into bankruptcy or anything like this. It's just obviously they had lower volumes in terms of producing cases, and there were no more heirs in the family, and they that's why they ceased their operation, sold a lot of the assets, and 50 years later, Toby looked at the brand and said, is this something that we can buy? And then he bought the trademark, bought the brand, made sure legally everything was fine. And, he had this brand for a long time. He didn't do anything. And we've met in October 2023. And then January 2024, we started working on this. Somebody from the watch industry introduced us. Thank you to him. And from there, we got along very well, and we said, let's try to put this back. Bring it back to life. It's a rebirth of the brand.
And all of a sudden, a legend in the world of wristwatch design, a living legend, and a name that's truly legendary, which is Gite, Emanuel Gite, designed the ALD collection. Yes. How did he come into the mix? What happened? How'd that happen?
Yeah, it's funny because obviously, for me, not coming from this industry, I don't come from the watch industry, and I needed to find somebody to design, our first collection, our first watch. So I literally Googled watch designers in Geneva, and then his, profile came up on LinkedIn. Contacted him. And after 5 days, we met in his studio.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You just cold called him.
Yeah, I just, sent him a message. He actually replied, which was, very nice of him. And then we met for an hour. I remember it was, during winter, where it was January. And then we got along so well after, talking an hour at the end. And now he tells me the story. It's like after this hour of, both of us talking about watch and Dennison, he said that it was like we had known each other for a long time. So we got along very well, and it was good to bring him on the team because obviously he has a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and he brings a lot of value to this brand.
Kudos to you for just reaching out. I mean, for our listeners, this is equivalent to reaching out to Gilbert Albert in his heyday, or Gerald Genta in his heyday, and say, hey, could you do this project with us? Let's have a coffee. And same with like Emanuel Gite. You're like, hey, can we talk? And a couple days later, you have the genesis of this this concept.
And
I love it.
Yeah, I remember also a funny story with him. Again, not being from the watch industry and learning as I went along. When we signed, we will work together, and then we started looking at, okay, this is the brief. I actually literally told him, can you do something for next week? And he looked at me and he said, I'm going to need a few weeks to, digest this, look at the whole history about Dennison, look at, all the archives, because we have a lot of, paper and digital archives. And he told me the best I could do is, within a month, I'll be back with designs. So I said, are you sure you cannot do it in 2 weeks? And then, we stuck to 1 month, like he said. So I didn't want to push it.
You didn't want to push your luck.
No, exactly.
And just, I want to quote from our friends at Time and Tide about Emanuel. They said, quote, "The man who is tasked with beefing up Genta's design and creating the Royal Oak offshore. He penned the Rolex Cellini, and his father, famously, Jean-Claude Gite, designed the original Piaget stone dials."
Yes.
And there's some resemblance here, among many, many others. In other words, watch design runs in Gite's blood. End quote. I mean, it's legendary.
Yeah. It's so much fun, so much. I mean, I learn every day. We try to meet almost every 2 days because I'm also based in Geneva, and I have coffee with him, and we just look at, his archives, what we've done in the past, what we're looking at. I brief him. And again, when we designed this watch, I remember bringing him buckles of different suppliers we were working with. For him to choose one, he looked at them and he said, and sorry for the word, they look shit. And he just took his pen in front of me and he drew he took the case and then just drew the buckle, and then that's history now. It's a very nice buckle associated with the case.
The thought of people sitting in Geneva, like in a coffee shop with a pen and paper and making things become real, is just like part of the Swiss storyline. I love it. I just think it's so much fun. And here's a case of something that happened within a year ago.
Yes.
So let's discuss the watch itself. I've had the opportunity to speak to a number of journalists about this project, and they were very interested in how Patek Philippe fits in the storyline. Obviously, there are pieces in my collection that kind of speak to this aesthetic. I'm obsessed with the ellipse. I'm obsessed with the golden circle, and that's why it really resonated when I saw the watch on your wrist. But if you asked me before we met, like, what's the perfect watch, I would take, these are two pieces from my collection.
Yes.
I would take a 3604, which is beautiful automatic from the 70s with a blue dial. It's that white gold case and the golden circle shape, which was so famous in the late 60s and 70s. And I would combine it with this dial on my 3862, which is this mesh bracelet watch that I love. The 3862, by the way, was made in yellow gold and white gold. And one of the three options for dials is this two-tone dial. Now, that two-tone dial with that inner ring with the darker blue, if I could put that in a case of a 3604 with no date, I would be the happiest man on earth. And this watch, the Dennison collaboration watch with Collectability, is kind of the embodiment of that small dream come true.
Yes.
So it's so much fun to actually have these watches in front of us. We're about to do a little reveal, so you can take a look at the collaboration watch. But that's where I think the concept came together and where our conversations went. So let's start talking about the case.
Yes.
So Emanuel designed this case design. Did he share any thoughts about the inspiration with this? Is it some from his father, some from watches in the historical archive?
Yeah, I mean, he has, again, such a vast experience, and looking at what his father has done at Piaget, I think this came back through the stone dials that we're doing. What he wanted to do is a symmetrical and a shaped watch. That was very important. We didn't want to do a round watch, and we wanted to do something very slim, very elegant. So that was, the brief for him was, imagine if Dennison was still around today, what would they do? And I think in his mind, and again with his experience, he took a bit of Piaget, a bit of Vacheron, a bit of Patek, shook everything, and then boom, this is the case design. That's how the case was designed. So, and I remember it was almost a first, when he drew it for us, then we made a 2D. Out of the 2D, we kind of approved it almost right away. Then we had to do the 3D. And in the 3D, we kind of rounded up the edges and the underneath where the watch sits on the wrist. We wanted to make it as so a lot of work came also to make it wearable. But again, I think it was just Emanuel's brain, and he did this.
I'm curious, does the designer suggest the size? Like, this is 37 by 33.65 millimeters.
Yeah.
Did that come from Emanuel or from you?
Well, we didn't want a bigger watch. We didn't want a big watch. We didn't want a small. We wanted something that could also be worn, women and men. So I think it was, for us, kind of the perfect size. So yeah, it was a bit of us and Emanuel agreeing on the size of 37, 33.5.
Okay. Before we look at the dial itself, let's talk a little bit more about the collaboration Caseback.
Yes.
I'm thrilled because this is actually the first time seeing the Caseback with my own eyes minutes ago, because you just literally landed here in New York. And you see the Dennison Plus, and we'll talk about that in a second, Collectability. And I also see the words Swiss made. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So for us, again, when we started the first 6 months, we were not assembling in Switzerland. But as of May 6 today, we will be assembling in Switzerland. So that's why we're now Swiss made. And that was very important for us. I think it's, when you start, you need to, get ready and start selling watches quickly. And I think, assembling outside of Switzerland helped us with that. But now we need to also bring back quality and closer to home. For me, it's easier to manage. So the fact that it's going to be Swiss assembled is it's very good. And getting the Swiss made is also a token of quality.
Oh, well done. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think I want to come back to a conversation that my colleague Tanya and I had with you and Toby when we were discussing what should we put on the Caseback.
Yes.
And originally the concept was the classic for collaboration. You put an X, like a time symbol. I very strongly wanted to have a plus that looked like the famous mark that you see on steel cases, the brevet mark.
Yeah.
And it's a nod to Switzerland and Swiss made. It's a nod to Patek Philippe and frankly Rolex and the whole Swiss watchmaking industry. So I think that's just that's something that now that I see it with my own eyes, I'm so glad we did. It just kind of ties the whole story because it's just the addition of all these ideas coming together on this watch.
Yeah, it looks very good. The back case, and the plus sign, which is the brevet, sign. Again, a good touch, for Switzerland.
It's perfect. Now, looking at the dial, these are prototype dials here, but with our close-ups, we're going to show the actual dial.
Yes.
Let's talk about, because I know you had a lot of obsession and passion went into the design dial itself.
Yes.
So let's talk about that dial. And as I said, we'll look at close-ups of the actual dial momentarily. So.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the dial, obviously, because we have it's a two-tone sun ray, so there are two different colors, and there are literally two different sun rays. In the past, and you as the expert would know on this watch, they would put the ring between the two tones was made in gold. Nowadays, because of obviously technology has evolved, what's happening is that they use diamond cutting, and they cut using a diamond. They cut between the two sun ray dials, and they cut at an angle, which gives it, like it was a ring, a golden ring or a stainless steel ring. So I think nowadays, when you look at the dial, you don't see any, like in the past where you could see the gold moving a little bit. It's really, really very precise. So that's kind of, evolution again, because, it's due to new technologies that we're able to do this.
I was pleasantly surprised by all of the shop drawings that you shared with us in this dial design. Like, it's not as easy as pushing a button.
No.
It's very complex. I mean, down to the micromillimeter. I mean, every single thing, a decision needs to be made with you working with the designer. And I've never been involved in like R&D behind a watch in any way, shape, or form. So to see that, and even with this watch, it's just a real pleasure. The creativity meets engineering.
Yes, and even Emanuel had to look at the different Pantones to use for the different blue. So we tried different things, and I think this one was the best combination of blue on that dial.
The colors, spot on.
Exactly.
All right, the big question everyone's waiting for is, why is there no logo on the dial?
Well, that was a request from someone named John Reardon.
He's a pain.
No, I mean, I think we followed your advice, and I think there's a whole storytelling, and I'm sure you'll talk about it now. But I think it was important for us to understand where you're coming from, and I think when you do a collaboration, it's we wanted to give you also as much as you wanted to get in terms of design. So I'll let you tell the story about the no logo on the dial.
Sure. I guess this is where it's fun with the collaboration. It is a give and take.
Yes.
And I remember the conversation when I was insisting no logo on the dial. I think the oxygen left the room.
Yes.
Apologies for that. 'Cause it's a grand experiment, but it's rooted in history. In the 19th century, of course, many Patek Philippe watches were imported into the U.S. with no logos on the dial. Occasionally there were, especially getting into the 1870s, there were retailer signatures added. But many of these pieces had just no logos by design. It's just looking at the historic catalog from the 1850s and 1860s. But what really intrigues me is jumping into the 1960s and 1970s. Is looking at form watches that Patek Philippe made for the Middle Eastern market in particular. There's not many, but there are a number of jeweled watches and enamel dialed watches that had no logo on the dial whatsoever.
Yes.
Most famously, there's a Calatrava that had King Saud. Of course, there'd be no Patek Philippe. You can't share that with the king.
No.
But I think other watches made, my theory, for Middle Eastern royalty often did not have Patek Philippe on the dial. And that is just that. I love it.
Yes.
And when you turn the dial around on these watches that were made for the Middle East, it's signed Patek Philippe on the back, which you don't see normally. So I find that little pleasant humble brag about the watch without the overt branding very interesting. So that's kind of an Easter egg within this design with having no logo on the dial.
Yeah, I mean, when you said, when you asked us for that, we're a young brand. We're 6 months old. And for us, it was important that, the name is there because we want to build a brand. But I don't think it's, in a collaboration with you, in such a collaboration, it's not important because people know who you are. People will hopefully come to know who we are, now and in the future. So that's why we agreed to this request. And I think it makes sense. It also makes the dial beautiful.
Well, thank you for, how would you say, accepting our request in such a way, because it's a bold request for collaboration.
Yep.
I love the result. It's subtle, it's understated, and it's a little bit mysterious. You have to turn around the watch to see what it's all about.
Exactly.
Another big question people are asking is like, what about the movement? I'm shocked how many people are asking about the movement. So, yes, it's a Quartz movement. Yes, I personally love Quartz. Quartz is part of the storyline of horology. In fact, it's kind of like the end game of horology in terms of functionality. What can you tell me about the Quartz movement that's used within this watch?
Well, I mean, it's the same Quartz movement we use, for the rest of our collection. For us, it was important to work with Ronda Swiss movements. It's a 1062, so there's a 5-year battery life, so you don't really have to change it again every 5 years. It could even they say it could even last further. For us, again, we get a few questions of people asking us, are we gonna move to a mechanical movement, or why didn't we start with a mechanical movement? I think that wasn't even a question for us when the team met with Emanuel. Again, we wanted a very elegant and slim watch. That was the brief, and that's what we wanted from the beginning. And obviously, Quartz is the way to go for that. So right now, we're gonna use and continue to use Quartz, and it also allows us to have a price that's affordable, and so we will continue with Quartz and this one is also same Quartz movement.
It's in conversations with collectors, they're like, why would Collectability do a collaboration using a Quartz movement? And I love that question because Patek Philippe was at the core of Quartz development, going back into the 1940s, and then it came to fruition in the 1850s and 60s. So it's part of the storyline, and it's also a very Swiss storyline too. So I love this as a Swiss Quartz movement,
exactly,
which is from that design DNA.
And I'm sure you own a few Pateks with Quartz movement, right?
I do. And my first Patek Philippe was a reference 5064 Quartz Aquanaut, which I still love to wear to this day. But I take a lot of slack for that all the time, and that's fine. Bring it on. Because at the end of the day, Quartz offers a superior functionality and a price point that can't be beat. So
yes, exactly.
It is what it is. So I do hope to see a mechanical watch from you someday, though.
Yes.
Anything's possible.
Exactly.
So. Let's do an unboxing. Sorry to do this so late. You're now seeing the packaging for the first time with your own eyes.
Exactly.
And you'll see each of these boxes has the gold PVD has a gold stripe, collectability logo, of course the Dennison logo with our respective colors, but like the amazing video you made for the website, when you open the box, you capture the swish in the video, which is a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, the unboxing the unboxing video is very nice.
So when we take these watches out, of course, you'll see some familiar packaging for anyone that's bought a collectability watch from us, and you have the white metal. I have the gold PVD, and here they are. It's so much fun to see it in the packaging itself. So this is the actual dial that will be used on the final product. So it's a limited edition. Can you speak to that a bit more?
Yeah. So we are starting today, May 6th, and we stop selling the watch on May 11. So it's 5 days where the watch will be available. If we potentially could sold out before the May 11. So that's you have 5 days to get it, and then it won't be available anymore.
And how much?
So the price is $690.
Okay.
$690 USD.
Does that include shipping?
Yes.
It does.
Free shipping, of course.
Excellent.
Yes.
Stephane, I don't know what more to say. This has been such a fun project to do with you. Already people are asking, will we have other projects in the future? Time will tell.
Yes.
Time will tell. Do you have any final thoughts to leave with our listeners before we wrap up for today?
I want to thank you, for us, doing our first collaboration with you, with Collectability, with, you as a brand name, as an, Patek Philippe expert. It's, the bar is quite high. I think the other collaborations coming up potentially, during the year, it's going to be hard to beat that, but we'll, hopefully we'll try to do as good as this one. But I'm so happy to have worked with you on this one. I think it's a beautiful project. It's a beautiful watch, and it has a beautiful story. So I just encourage you to go on the website. You'll learn a little bit more about the watch, and you have all the specs. So hopefully you'll get it and enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Stephane, for your
John.
time. And thank you, our listeners and watchers, for joining us today at Collectability. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Thank you so much. This is John Reardon for Collectability.